Welcome to episode 59 of the Hookston MMA podcast. This week, we're lucky enough to have Chad, the monster, Anheliger join us, who's got a fight this Tuesday on Dana White Contender Series. He's a 10-5 bantamweight who hails out of Eastern Alberta. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Doing good. How are things in Vegas right now? I assume you're down in Nevada?
Yep. Yeah, I've been here for almost 2 weeks already. Just focusing on the fight. It's kind of nice to have no distractions. Just focus on training, recovery, and now at this point, it's just kind of focusing on the weight cut and the fight itself. So.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll get into some of your fight prep here, just so you can tell some of the viewers about what goes into that. But maybe we'll start off with just a bit earlier in your career. So you grew up in Eastern Alberta. Just kind of curious what got you into MMA and what were some of the maybe sports or influences you had growing up that got you into this?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really, obsessed with combat sports or anything when I was younger. I was just a pretty normal kid and played hockey in my small town and as long as I could until hockey was kind of over with. And it wasn't until I was a bit older and I moved to a city that had some martial arts even as an option to train. And I just kind of had a bit of a, competitive and athletic void after I was done playing hockey. And I went into my first MMA gym and I just loved it. And I just kept going and I was getting better. And then I wanted to test myself with competitions and fights. And before you know it, we're here.
Super cool. I always like to ask, what discipline kind of drew you in? Was it, the boxing, jiu-jitsu, maybe karate? Which one would you say was the main focus for you?
When I first started, I boxing is kind of what really brought me over and made me want to train combat sports. I didn't know if it was actually going to be boxing or MMA or what, because even then, I mean, it was a long time ago. It was probably 14 years ago-ish when I started training. So MMA was like, it was just getting going. There really wasn't a lot going on. In fact, there was fights every weekend. So when I first started training, I didn't really know where it was going to go. And I originally, boxing was kind of my first passion that made me want to try it out and try sparring and try those classes. And then it ended up evolving into, what I do now for MMA.
Awesome. Yeah. You're well-rounded in all disciplines now. And yeah, you're right. Sometimes it can go halfway into something like kickboxing or Muay Thai, right? Which is kind of like a hybrid of boxing and MMA. So yeah, tell us a bit about how you got into, the regional circuit. So I was looking up your record, saw you started with Hard Knocks, which I believe is an Alberta-based promotion, and then more recently got into Rise FC, which I believe is out of BC. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, that's right. I mean, when I first started, it was kind of, it was still pretty new for MMA in Canada, and there wasn't a lot of amateur opportunities. So I only had one amateur fight and then we went pro because there wasn't fights happening in amateur. It hadn't grown, and what it is now is amazing. We've got like really strong amateur circuit out here. Like a lot of our amateurs are very skilled. They have a lot of fights, etc. But I didn't really have that chance. So that, a lot of the early part of my record probably all should have happened in amateur, but I had to take the licks and get it on my pro record. But it doesn't affect where we're at now. I had to go through it one way or another. So I don't have any, disdain for how my career started. But yeah, I started off local, just reaching out. My coach was getting me fights wherever we could fight. And then it wasn't until I was a little bit later on in my career and I made the switch to Champions Creed Gym, where we started putting a little bit more thought and effort into what fights and where and versus who.
Right. A little more technical and formal in your approach.
Yeah. The fight had to make sense for, risk and reward, and weight was a big thing. I fought in 5 different weight classes in my pro career. And that was simply because we just said, whatever, we want to fight whoever at whatever weight, whatever date. And that's how the whole first half of my fight career was. It was just, I didn't know who, when, or what weight. My coach was just lining them up. And then once I realized that I really wanted to take it to the next level and get serious about it, I started, fine tuning things like my weight class and stuff like that. And it really made a big difference, obviously.
Awesome. So when you were starting to get into it, did you have any influences, maybe like from the early days of the UFC or maybe Pride fighting, that you tried to model, your approach in the cage off of? Are there any, maybe role models in the sport that you give some credit to, or?
I mean, not really. I kind of developed my own style, my own way of fighting. I've done it for a long time now, so I'm pretty comfortable with myself and the way to go about a fight, how to prepare, how to execute. I've done it a lot on my own, so I know how to do it. When I was younger, the big fighters at the time was, Tito and Chuck and Randy and all those guys, and it wasn't as in depth as to who a fighter was and stuff. There was just these big fights that would happen every once in a while. So those are the guys I looked up to, but nothing super specific. I really kind of made my own way, and that's why my career has a little bit of ups and downs, because I had to do a little bit of learning on my own.
Right. Yeah, and I guess once WEC got, folded into the UFC there, that's where we started to see more of the, bantamweights and featherweights really come to, let's call it the mainstream, right? Versus the old days where it's mostly heavyweights and the odd welterweight, middleweight. But yeah, how would you kind of describe your style then? So obviously you have the boxing foundation. How would you kind of describe your skill set and your approach when you get in there?
I just really like to put the pressure onto my opponents, the pressure in a lot of ways, whether that's moving forward or that's just not giving them any breaks, or, no resting. And against the cage, I'm always moving, elbowing, pushing off, looking for submissions, looking for knockouts. I really like to overwhelm them with just how I'm never taking my foot off the gas in the fight. For me, when that fight starts, I mean, it's do or die from start to finish. I'm not looking to stay safe or, find an easy path to victory. I mean, it's a fight, and I take it very seriously. So when I'm in there, I'm trying to hurt the guy the whole time, and that's usually what makes him break.
Awesome. Yeah, you bring that pressure, bring the blitz, and you kind of stalk your opponents down. No room to run, right?
Definitely.
So looking forward to next week. I see you've got Ewan Gafarov here that you're matched up against. I'm seeing he's Extreme Couture guy. He's fought in UAE Warriors and won championship. What do you know about him, and what's kind of your approach and mindset going into that matchup?
Yeah, he's experienced, and he's got a lot of big wins. He's fought a lot of big names and big promotions. So I don't think he's going to get overwhelmed by the experience out here at all. He's already had big fights and big opponents. So, I'm not going to be able to just, mentally break him. I'll have to physically break him, and that's what I'm going to do. So I know he hits hard, and he's knocked out a lot of his opponents. So I think he thinks that that's going to be his path to victory versus me. But I move too well. I hit way too hard. My footwork is good. My striking is good. And once his first game plan doesn't work, and then his second one doesn't work, he starts to get in real danger, and I'll take him out.
Yeah, so you can really leverage your athleticism and kind of your agility to really just keep him on his toes and keep him guessing.
Yeah, I don't cut a lot of weight for this weight class. Like I've fought as low as 125.
Okay.
And I can still make that weight. So I don't cut a ton of weight because I want the advantage of my speed and my cardio and just that grinding, never moving, never stopping pressure I can put on these guys that cut more weight.
It almost reminds me of a fellow Albertan who we've had on the show, Tanner Bozer. He kind of has that approach in heavyweight, right? Where he knows he's not going to be the heaviest guy in there, but he's going to be the quickest and have the most agility to really just technically kind of pick apart his opponents. So no, that's a good approach. So maybe tell us a bit about how it came to be you getting on the Contender Series here, and what that journey's been like. I would imagine you probably inked an agreement a number of months ago, and from there leading up to the fight, what goes into that preparation?
Yeah, my journey to getting here has been long. It's been almost a year long, because I had an offer last year to fight for Contender Series. I had the opponent, I had the date, I had everything ready, and I put myself through a very hard training camp. And it was only about 10 days out of the fight. It came out that we couldn't end up crossing the border. There's some problems getting my visa and some problems traveling with COVID. So I lost out on that opportunity, and it was kind of the last chance at the end of that season. So the season was over. So it was really frustrating because I had it and it just kind of slipped away. So then I looked at doing another local fight, defending my title out in Rise. But then I got sick with COVID. Again, it was like 10 days before the fight. I've already put in another full training camp and then I couldn't fight. So I lost out on that opportunity. And then I was getting kind of depressed because COVID, I don't know what wave it was, but came back and it was really shutting down all fights again. But then, just out of the blue, it was only a couple of weeks after I was supposed to fight, my management called me and said, we're back on for Contender Series. So it gave me a long time to prepare. I knew probably 4 months in advance at least. And yeah, this is one of the fights that made it all the way through. I got the opponent, I got the date, and nothing's changed right up to it. So I'm very prepared now.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to cheer you on next week, and it's a long time coming. It seems like it's well overdue, and I'm sure you're ready for this. Why don't you maybe comment on the current landscape of Canadian MMA? Because, you look at the calendar and there's a lot of really talented Canadians, both fighting in the UFC and other affiliations. One that comes to mind, Aaron Jeffrey, right? He's on the Contender Series coming up, and he's been on the show. He's local to us here in Niagara. Why don't you, what have you observed? Because you're a veteran. You've been around in this scene for a while. So how have you seen that change, Canadian MMA, over the years?
Yeah, I mean, it's as good as it's ever been. I mean, we got a ton of talent up here. And one of the differences between the Canadian MMA scene and a lot of the others is we don't really have the luxury of padding our records like a lot of these other guys do. The Brazilians are bad for it. The Russians are bad for it. The Americans are bad for it. And they just have so much more population and people competing. So there's more people out there that are 1-10 and 0-7, and these guys are still taking these fights and just padding up these records. It's crazy to me. You can watch guys get into the UFC from beating these really padded records. In Canada, we don't really have that option. We have less events and we have less fighters, and for that reason, there's less, bums out there that the promoters are going to take. They're not going to give somebody a shot when they got a bunch of guys who've been waiting months to fight that have decent records that are willing to fight each other. So we're really grinding it out against each other, and I think that's making everybody here a lot better. It doesn't show in the records a lot of the time. We have a lot more evened up records out here, but when you really break them down and start looking at the opponents, I really think the Canadians are really highly skilled and already doing the right things by forcing themselves to take the tough fights.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. We have a shallower pool here in Canada, and it's I would say just the caliber is a lot higher, right? Like relatively speaking. Mm-hmm. And we grew up with Josh the Gentleman Hill. Went to elementary school, high school, played a bunch of sports with him, and he said the exact same. He had issues just finding guys to accept the fight, for a number of years before he made Bellator. So it's an interesting landscape, but then again, it's nice to see some of the success that you guys are having and getting to the big stage. So I'm excited for what's to come for Canadian MMA.
Yeah, definitely. There's gonna be a lot more of us, breaking through that boundary and really showing how much higher our level is. And I'm not just saying that for myself. I really do believe that some of our guys with not as impressive records could do very well against some of these guys with big fancy 10-0 records out here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think back to when I was in high school, kind of seeing, GSP break into the scene and make noise, David Loazo, those guys. And it's just funny. They were the only ones, it seemed. And now there's just almost every card you look at, there's at least one Canadian on there. So it's nice to see that popularity really growing. So I know we're running out of time. I know you've got a busy schedule. So we've got a segment here on the show called In Between Rounds. It's basically just rapid fire questions to kind of emulate how you would be in between rounds in your corner. So I'll kick things off. Are you ready to go?
Sure, ready as ever.
Okay, so the first one, I know you said you played hockey. So are you an Oilers or a Flames fan?
Flames.
Okay. And then I got to go CFL, Stampeders, and I guess it's the Elks now, right?
Yeah, that's right. It did change. I'm a Stamps fan myself.
Stamps, okay. Yeah, got to follow suit. What's your favorite place to travel to outside of Canada that you've been to in your life?
It's a good question. There's lots of good ones out there, but I love getting to Mexico. It's one of my favorite places to go relax.
Yep. You can't go wrong with a mojito sitting on the beach, right? There you go.
Good weather.
Awesome. What's your favorite food? If you had one last meal, what would that be?
I'm a simple man, just burger and fries. I like a good barbecue burger.
Okay. Is there any famous burger spots in Alberta that would be your go-to?
My backyard barbecue.
There you go. Porto Backyardo.
That's right.
Awesome. What's your preferred method of finish? Would it be a crazy knockout, a slick submission, or a 3 or 5 round war?
Yeah, it really depends on the opponent, but I don't like to just get a quick win. I want to really feel the guy and beat him and break him down and take them out. So I like a late finish.
Awesome. Yeah. Exciting for the fans to watch too. And finally, if things go well and you get the W next week, are there any names or people you'd call out that you want a potential matchup with moving forward here?
I think I match up really well with a lot of the UFC division right now. I won't get too far ahead of myself, but I know there's a recent winner of the Ultimate Fighter 135 division that if I was there, he wouldn't have been the winner. So maybe we can see if we can figure that out.
Was that the one from Saturday night in the finale?
Yeah, yeah. Ricky Turcios.
Yes.
He won the Ultimate Fighter, but that Ultimate Fighter, like I said, I think there was only people that were like within driving distance of Vegas for that. So
yeah,
not the true Ultimate Fighter. There's other 135ers out there.
Yeah, it was a bit of a unique season, 29 here. We did have on Aaron Phillips from Alaska, who was on the show, and he was telling me a bit about that. But yeah, that'd be a great matchup for you. I did watch that card, and yeah, that was actually a really good fight. That one near the end there. So awesome. Yeah, that wraps up that segment. So maybe before we part, if there's any shout outs, like sponsors, maybe coaches, guys from the gym that you'd like to call out, or even just any of your social media that you'd like to promote here for any of the listeners tuning in.
Yeah, I just want to give a big thanks to my team, Champions Creed in Calgary. You know, they've gotten me everything I need to get the success that I want. So they've been a huge help, and my team's on the way out soon. They're going to be here tomorrow, I think, to help me get set up for my weight cut. So Champions Creed for sure. And then 40th Rehab, physio, massage. They just do it all. They keep my body working because I push it real hard. So they're by far the best team out there to help support me. And my strength and conditioning coach, Jason Pryor, he's been helping me for years and years and years, and the benefits are really shining through now. So I want to say thanks to all them.
That's great. No, you've got a good crew surrounding you. And like I said, we're excited to cheer you on Tuesday night. So everyone tune into that. It's on ESPN Plus. It's going to be a great matchup, a lot of fireworks. And yeah, hope to have you on the show again, Chad. And all the best. Safe travels. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Okay. Take care.
Later.